This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent supporters podcast that talks about our national football team. It's not hard hitting. I try not to be controversial. I may throw my 2 pennies worth in at times, but I just try and bring you England content as and when. And I like to do it with fellow England fans and football fans in general, and often with memories and experiences. If you're a new listener, hello. All previous episodes, well, they're available at threelionspodcast.com or your chosen podcast platform. And if you're a regular listener, thank you as always. Now, the most recent episode, we look back on the Wales, Belgium and Denmark international break with some England bloggers. A frustrating break, I think it's fair to say. Anyway, we move on for this episode, which sees us chat to a fellow England fan who set up a travel group, Fans Go, to help England fans get to away games. Now, he's not the only one to have done this, and I take my hat off to any that arrange flights and coaches for our supporters. And many of us will have taken these trips, but perhaps not appreciated just quite what goes into them all. But Steve Ocsko got in touch to tell his story. And if he went on any of his trips back in the day, perhaps this will bring back some memories. Right, welcome to the Three Lions podcast. We're going back in time for another one of our episodes, and we're speaking with Steve Ocsko. Steve, hello there.
Good day to you, Russell. How are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, doing well.
Good. Keeping busy in these strange times.
Yeah, but it's being retired, it's not too bad. It's not made a lot of difference to me, to be fair, other than having to cancel England trips and rebook them. Yeah,
a lot of that going on at the moment, and we still don't really know where we stand as in with regards to supporters attending, do we?
No, but I think we've made a decision that we're going to go anyway. So we've been booked up, us and a couple of friends, to go to Iceland and Belgium and Copenhagen, and we're going to go if they allow us in, just to see what happens. Sit in a local bar. Lovely.
I wish you luck. I've booked up for Copenhagen and Brussels. I've booked up for. I didn't do Iceland, but yeah, we'll wait and see. But anyway, you got in touch with me because you told me about a couple of trips that you'd done in the past, which we're going to touch on, but also your very first away game, which was quite a while ago, which I thought we'll start the conversation on.
Yep.
You've got Hungarian roots, haven't you?
Yeah, somewhere back. And I'm as you can tell by my accent, I'm as English can be. My dad was Hungarian, right, and so half my family still lives over there. And my first away game was a long time, back in the early 80s. I had to look it up. It was 1981.
Right.
The mighty England was over there, and I happened to be over there on a holiday with my dad. So my cousin just took me to one side and said, do you fancy going to football? I know you like your football. Because I was always bragging. I did a lot of travel early in the 70s with Tottenham. And I've been to see England quite a lot. The first England game, in inverted commas, away probably was Scotland a couple of years before. But that was, going to Scotland's not really an away day to me. So he got some tickets and we went to see the game in Budapest.
So was this a qualifier for the 82 World Cup, would it have been? Or was it a friendly, do you remember?
It was a qualifier. And I think England up until then have been playing pretty bland and rubbish football. Shouldn't have been, looking at the team. But, they've been playing pretty rough football. And so this was a must-win game for them, I think, you find.
So this one, I'm just looking at the stats for it. It ended Hungary 1, England 3. Is that right?
Yeah, but it felt a bit closer than that, to be fair.
Yeah.
There were surprisingly there wasn't a lot. Well, I'd say surprisingly, you had to have all visas back in those days. There wasn't a huge English contingent. The Hungarians really were up for it, and they felt they could win the game.
Yeah.
It was played at the Nep Stadium in the centre of Budapest.
Right.
They just couldn't. Yeah, you just couldn't get enough tickets for this thing. Really difficult to get tickets for.
There was a lot of people in there, by all accounts.
It was packed. I genuinely couldn't tell you the capacity, but it's 50,000 plus.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know if anybody's ever been there. It's not there anymore. It's been knocked down and rebuilt.
Oh, right. What, as a new stadium, or they've just...
I think they built it as a new stadium. I haven't had the pleasure of going there, but I think it's named after a famous Hungarian footballer called Ferenc Puskás.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's named after him now. But it's them days, it was just a typical old-fashioned East European concrete bowl with, I don't remember any roof on the bloody thing. And it was just packed to the rafters with Hungarians making loads of noise with lots of flags and that. And of course, I was sitting with the Hungarians, so it was quite entertaining.
You felt quite safe though back then, did you?
I think there was a little bit of trouble in town, not a lot, because that was the days of the 80s. But to be fair, I had no real problems. I could speak a little bit of the language, didn't wear my colours, which was, again, pretty traditional in those days. And just, I felt fairly safe. And if somebody spoke to me, I could nod back and utter a few words. So I was lucky. I did shout a little bit when Trevor Brookings scored an absolute scorcher, which I seem to remember. I don't remember many of the other goals, but I noticed the one where he hit it so hard, he got stuck in the top part of the goal.
Oh, in the stanchion bit, was it?
Yeah, in the stanchion bit, yeah.
Well, but it looks like Brooking got 2 that day and Keegan got a penalty.
That's right, yeah. I mean, the Hungarians equalised. When they equalised, it just went mad. You've not been to many stadiums abroad where they created that amount of noise for that long. So, they genuinely, as I say, felt they could win it. Sadly, they were wrong.
Well, it's been a while since we've played Hungary, as we were just sort of saying before we started recording. I've not been to Hungary before, and England as the senior team, we haven't been back there since '99. Looking at it,
I remember we played them a few years back at Wembley, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Played them at home, and I thought we'd guaranteed we'd get a reciprocal away game over in Budapest. And again, for me, it's easy, so I'm used to the place. It's just nice to go there, but no, not happened so far. Not been there as a specific England trip, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, hopefully in the near future we'll be seeing them. Yeah, places I'd like to tick off. But you emailed me with details of another particular game that you went to, which had me. This was a great little story that you told me about a trip to Ukraine in 2009. And it was a game I didn't go to. It was a game I remember watching in the cinema, which was I think it was because Sky, ITV, or whoever obviously didn't have the rights to it, so I had to go and sit. I remember I've still got the cinema ticket somewhere in amongst all my England paraphernalia, as some people might call it. But yeah, you went and you took a fair few people with you.
Yeah, it was just it's we always talk about the good trips, the best trips, and we've all been to tournaments which have been fabulous. But there's always one trip which I went on. I've been quite a few over the years, which always comes up in conversation just because of so much happened on it. And that was just going to Ukraine. I mean, we had a little company which we set up a few years back, which we only run for 3 or 4 years, called Fans Go. But we used to take sort of 50, 60, usually a coach load to various places. And that particular tournament, of course, we had Belarus, we had Kazakhstan, and we had the Ukraine, we had Croatia. And there was in between, I think there was a friendly over in Berlin. So It was really, really good. And we just set up the flights, the transfers, and the hotels.
I'd take my hat off to anyone who puts in that amount of effort to organise it for fellow supporters. So I mean, to start with, I take my hat off to you. It must take a lot of doing.
Yeah, It was fun, to be fair. We was, I think, as I said to you, we was just fed up with seeing some of the way that the fans were treated by the big boys or the official carrier, who were seen to be taking the mick out of prices. So we got together, me and a good lady and a guy called Paul Wilson, a Palace fan. We sat down, set the company up, little limited company. And again, we're not unusual. I think several people have done this over the years. If you remember RAF tours, and I think there's a couple of people still doing this sort of thing now. But yeah, it was really good fun and a great way. You know, I can go almost any England game now and we'll meet people who I've met over the years doing this business. So it's good fun.
You just done it for the fun rather than the. I mean, I can't imagine there was a great deal of money in it, like profit was there.
The idea was to be trying to break even. We lost money on the first couple of years, and I think the last year, which was the South Africa World Cup, we actually broke even. We made £10 profit that year, which was absolutely stunning. You know, we only ever did 3-4 days away. We weren't meant to be mega cheap. We're not one of these get 5 flights, take 12 hours to get to an away day in Spain. That's just not our style. And it was, for anybody, you didn't have to be an England fan member, though to be fair, you had to be half-fitted and know someone else who'd been with us.
Yeah. So this trip to Ukraine, was this one of the early ones, one of the first ones you'd done, or? No,
we'd done a few before, so it was quite an easy sell. We'd as I said, we'd been to Belarus and to one or two others. But this one, just from the off, we set up a little group of us went and met Ukraine Air. So we went via them, and you put an order in for 55 seats on Ukraine Air, and they just think you're the bee's knees. We had to help a lot of people get some visas as well. And it's quite funny when the way that we operated, invariably we dropped a little line or spoke to people who had been with us before, and we could easily have doubled that amount to go with us. Yeah. But, the idea was we flew into Kiev and then have a little stay over and then fly down to Dnipropetrovsk. And I know you wanted me to say that word because it's a weird old place. It's not quite as far as Dnipro,
right?
But it's more southerly rather than southeasterly.
Right.
But it's got the same sort of makeup, where you've got half of them are Russian and probably less than that, and the rest of them are Ukrainian, which I found very difficult to get on with. But yeah, it was like a split trip. But nothing ever goes simple with these things, does it?
Keeps you on your toes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even at the airport, I don't know why, but we was met by some local police who wanted to go through all the details of everybody and make sure people were not. Found out later they were just on a freebie because they were also on the flight going down to there. They had a couple of days in the sun based on us, to be fair.
Yeah.
But so they checked us out. All went okay until we landed in Kiev, which was different. I don't know if you've been to any of these ones where you had to go down to Dnipro, but we had to go out of the airport and then turn up at Terminal 2, which was about a quarter of a mile away, and then wait a few hours for the next flight down to Dnipropetrovsk. I'm just going to call it Dino.
Go on then, we know what you mean.
So everybody, where'd we go? What'd you do? So what'd you do? You have a few beers and have something to eat. Yeah. And I think there was about a dozen of us ended up sitting in this little cafe just outside International Airport. No one speaking Ukrainian, obviously. And we ordered some beers, and my good lady was with us. So we ordered a vodka and bitter lemon. And I always remember this lady came around, she had a dozen beers, put them on the table. She had a carafe of vodka and a slice of lemon. So it just got lost in translation. And half a dozen shot, but didn't need them. We just got a tumbler, and I must admit, she drank most of that herself.
that was probably cheaper than the beer, was it?
It was ridiculously cheap. And again, I don't know how many, they weren't called rubles, were they? I don't know. I've got some of their notes upstairs somewhere. I don't know how many Ukrainian thingies were to the pound, but it literally couldn't have been more than about 10 quid a round. Yeah. And that, for a dozen beers and some vodka as well, you can't argue, can you?
Not at all.
Silly money. Not
So
quite as silly as in Belarus, because, of course, that one, I think we spent 100 quid spends in 4 days and still had change.
No.
Yeah, obscene.
So there's 50 of you just touching in on this cafe ordering beers. Was that right?
Well, so there was a dozen of us in this one. There was the rest of them sort of scattered around, went to St. Louis or went to the other. We thought we'd have to, being responsible, running the trip. The idea was we take you there, we get you back, and we just leave you alone in between. So we went down to, when the time we got through to the terminal, everybody else was already waiting for us and panicking. So, I've got all the tickets. I've got these e-tickets or whatever it was. But then, a large number of 50 fans just milling around, and all these police turned out. I thought, oh no, here we go. We got trouble. Someone's caused trouble. But we was all being fine. Yeah. And then suddenly the Ukrainian football team had landed, and they were all off to the same match.
So this was the team, obviously, we were playing in the game, and they were.
The team who was playing in the game, they'd landed at the airport, and they were off to. I don't know if they was on our flight. I doubt it. But it was funny because Shevchenko came through, and of course, he just took some stick. He took some mighty stick. He waved at the fans, and he got some various brilliant gestures back. But to be fair, they also fed him with various sausage rolls and brioche and burgers were all thrown his way. And again, the police were really good. I thought it was going to kick off, but no. What they did was they took us to one side, let us stand outside this bar, have a few beers, delayed our flight, let these guys go off. And I thought, oh no, what am I going to do now? Because of course, at the other end, you've got a coach waiting for you. You've got various other things, but I thought, that's sod it. There's not a lot you can do. No. So he just put us on his plane, which we thought, yeah, it's easy, isn't it? Another hour or so. And we'll be down in Dnipro. And it didn't happen that way.
No?
No, there was again, I've met a few people who were also on his flight, but all 50 of us were stuck on his plane. And I think there was an electrical storm. And so they landed us in this airfield. And whether it was a military base or a disused military base, there was a couple of MiGs sitting on there. Pulled us, landed us on this airplane on the airport. We thought, what now? Opened up the doors and they just said, everybody out.
Was this during the day or was it at night? Or
no, this was evening.
Right.
This was in the evening, so it was just getting dark. So we all jumped out, went down the steps, and there's nothing. I mean, there was a fence. There was a hole in the fence. So we just went through this hole in the fence and were left there. So
what did the pilot? Was the pilot or the plane staff? What were they?
No, the plane was sat behind us, and we were about 50 yards away outside. No, again, there's no terminals or anything. Yeah. Sitting on the fence, and a couple of people had a few tinnies in their bags, but that was about all. So,
but you didn't know what was going on, other than you'd sort of come down because of a storm.
Yeah, no one said nothing. We just sat there waiting for and it wasn't raining. This is a strange thing, Russell. I mean, it was electrical up in the air, but there was no rain coming down.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, what do you want to do here? So me and Paul walked off. We found around the other side of the airport, there was a cafe with a light on, knocked on the window. A lady came to the door and I sort of waved 20 quid's worth of Ukrainian thingies.
Yeah.
And she let us in and opened it up and let us have a beer.
Nice one.
So we opened it up, sent Paul back, bought the rest, not all of them, but 20 or 30 of them came round the corner with us, and we all said, she opened up the fridge. So just said, take what you want for beers and sandwiches and things. And this 20 quid seemed to cover everything. So we sat for an hour or so just sitting in there, keeping warm and drinking.
And was this a day before the game? Was it a few days before?
Yeah, we when we go away, to be fair, I usually go and all the trips we arrange for 3 or 4 days. So it's always get there before, have a bit of a laugh and see the match and then come home the day after. Just saves a lot of hassle, to be fair.
Yeah.
So we got back on. Finally, the police came round and found us, shouted a little bit, brought us back. We went back to the hole in the fence.
What I did see on some of the photos that you sent across was whilst in this sort of airfield, some of the England fans had put their flags up as well, which I thought was great.
Oh yeah, I mean, we was making ourselves at home. We didn't know how long. There was there's a crew that used to come with us from a place called Bexley Heath in London, and they're all Charlton fans, or Charlton was their second team, and they used to come along, and you'll see their flags quite a lot, even to this day. Bexley and Bexley Heath, and the Charlton sign up at the games. They just set them up and again cracked the beers and just made hay. Again, there's nothing else you can do.
No.
So they let us back on the plane. Oh, the other thing that was funny, when the plane landed, before we got off, half a dozen of the locals got off, run across the airfield and jumped into taxis that they'd ordered, which is surreal because, how did they know they were going to land there? But it was still a good half hour from where we wanted to be. I don't know. Never answered that question, to be fair, Russell. It doesn't matter. It's just always one of those things that stuck in my mind. Where the hell did they know?
Yeah.
But,
I think I'd be panicking. I think, to be honest, if I come down in an airfield, I didn't know what was going on. It was getting a little bit dark. I think I'd be, what's going on here? I'd want to know.
I think we was safety in numbers. We weren't bothered. But I do know one of the lads, his wife found out later that his wife was tracking the flight on one of these flight trackers. Now, how you can do that, I don't know. But she was tracking the flight, and she was a little concerned when they just went off radar and left. Stopped at one spot. She's thinking the worst has happened.
I'm not surprised.
But it was okay. It's just one of those experiences, isn't it? You get off an aeroplane, you don't expect to often see a MiG aircraft fighter plane sitting 20 yards away from where you parked. So it was different. Yeah. So then when we got to the airport down in Dnipro, I thought, here we go. Now we're not going to have no coaches, and everyone's had a few beers by now, all a bit tired. We've been travelling, I'm guessing, for the best part of 10 hours by now. And there was no problems at all. The coach was there, the police escort was there. We had several outriders.
So is that something that you would have organised? Like the fans go organise the coaches at that?
No, but if you're flying into, again, this is back in today, if you're flying into East Europe and you've got 50 or 60 people who are football fans, invariably you're met at the airport by the local police. They did it I think they did it in every trip we did. Even Croatia, we had outriders and police takes to our hotel.
Okay.
Which is funny, but again, for people who haven't been before with somebody, it just says, oh yeah, I'll organise that. Yeah, look at this, I've got the local police on my side, which was absolute tosh because it was the worst road in the world and we could only go about 20 miles an hour trying to avoid the potholes. But it was different fella. And we all stayed at a place called the hotel was called, strange enough, the Dino Petrovsk Hotel. You go to any East European country, they've got one hotel in that city, which is like the Hotel Belarus or Hotel Minsk.
Right.
It's the Hotel Dino Petrovsk.
I think I'd feel quite comfortable with that. I always think that if in a similar vein, where if I go to a restaurant or something and a burger is named after the restaurant's name, it's got to be fairly decent if they're going to name it after their own place. So, I mean, was it all right?
It was, well, define all right. For those days, I mean, it was, again, I've used the term atypical, but it was a typical communist hotel. So it was concrete, I don't know, 7 or 8 stories high. You had your big foyer, you had your little bit put away for the ladies of the night, had their own little desk on the right. At the end of on each of the floors, at the end of each floor, you had a little old lady sitting at a desk looking after to make sure people weren't just coming in and going out. You had a small bar, and this one actually had quite a big area where you could sit down, and I think they probably did dances because they had a stage, whatever. They put tables out there, and you could buy a few beers and have some of the local delicacies, which were, to be fair, pretty average at best.
I was going to say it sounded all right then.
It was clean for a change. It was clean, and again for the days that we travelled, it was okay. Somewhere to sleep and have a quick drink before you set out in your journey. I don't know if anybody remembers it because I know Thompson stayed there as well, which surprised me when they turned up the next day. They was doing a 2-day trip, I think. and they were staying there. And if you go outside, there was a great big fountain. It was the River Dnipro, and there was a big fountain in the river outside the hotel. And then on the left-hand side, there was a big concrete circus, and literally was a static circus for the national circus of the Ukraine.
Okay,
so that was interesting as far as that goes. What can I tell you? Yeah, so the next day, that evening, we went down to St. Augustine. A funny little story happened there, and there was some Russian bouncers on the doors of the hotel, and what they would call a club, I would just call a hall. And we started chatting to this bloke, and he was fervent. He was a Russian, even though he had a Ukrainian passport. He was a Russian, and it's weird. All those years later, you see all the trouble that went off after that. Begin. I'm glad we never questioned him too much on that, because they're really patriotic about being Russian first, Ukrainian second. But we went in there, and again, we was all a bit shattered because of the long journey. But you still got to have a couple of beers before you go to bed, and a little Saint Louis. And one of the lads with us, a guy, he's a Zulu, so he's a Birmingham fan called Steve Ocsko. He decided, and he's chatting to his bloke, the Russian wanted to swap his scarf with him, and he's going, no, you're not having it. It's not got any, but they're having a real serious discussion. So he said, tell you what, I'll have a dance off. They see who can do the best dancing. And they put on some, I don't know, Scatman type music, because it was rubbish music. And on this little pedestal thing, and it was like Steve Ocsko was doing a bit of the old moonwalking and the Michael Jackson. And this Russian was doing like sort of Technic robot dance, which was just bloody hysterical. I think they ended up swapping shirts rather than scarves, but it was just funny. So that was quite good. Yeah. Another little story from the trip.
So you crashed out after that, and then a day. What was it? Match day the following day.
Match day the following day. As ever, up fairly early. Went round and went to a museum in the morning. One of these war museums. And it's quite stunning. Again, I didn't know a lot about the Ukraine. Why would I? But I now know a little bit. And we walked in there, me and my wife and another guy called Richard Durance, or Durance, however he wants to pronounce it. We just walked into this thing. Nothing in English. It's all in Ukrainian and a bit of Russian. And it was just take you back. It was just like walking into one of the camps out there. They had all these shoes and hats and dolls and you just got the feeling when you started going around and looking up things online to see what turns out there was something like 10 million people killed in the war there. You never even hear about this, Russell. And it turns out half the country supported the Germans and half the country supported the Russians. And when the Germans came in, they obviously took reprisals one way, and then when the Russians came back, the reprisals were even more severe. But 10 million is just a big number.
Colossal figure, yeah.
It is. But then we just went down. We had a nice meal further around. Admired all the missiles that were on show, because they love their military might, these Eastern European countries. Went down by the Dnipro River, had a nice stroll, and then really it was time to get ready to go to the game. What can I tell you about the game? We're going up there. At the local Bob, our police force was out having all their pictures taken with their little helmets on, and the little girls around there. I'm thinking, you guys have got it easy, haven't you? Really got it easy. No real, a little bit of argy-bargy, no real trouble or anything. There was only probably a couple of thousand England fans that made it to the game. But they were really, really up for it again. It was a dead rubber. I think it was the last game of the qualification tournament. We had to go and pick up our tickets because for whatever reason we hadn't got hold of. We had to go around to the other side to pick them up at the ground. The England fans just set up a little kiosk. Right. And it was, of course, it was outside the Ukrainian entrance and right round the other side. So we had to do a walk of shame around this thing. And it was, first one thinking it's going to get a little bit tasty here because we've got our England tops on rather stupidly and we're happily walking round. And then we got approached. I thought, here we go. And all they wanted was to have their photo taken. You know, they got out their beers and their vodkas and passed it. It was me, Karen, and another bloke that we go away. We were just sitting there, passing it out, having their photos done. Not a problem in the world.
Yeah, that's the stories that you want to hear, isn't it?
Oh, it was, fella. As I say, I got a couple of good photos of those. And you know, it's not really my game is not really going around deliberately annoying people or anything. But it's nice when some of these people, just come up and just want to chat to you.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We're all generally the same. Like we all just want to see the football and just have a good day out. There's not many of us that want to go and just cause trouble on either side.
Not club members, don't we? We all have a few beers, and you know, we'd say that we've never stood up or had a bit of argy-bargy. I think he who throws the first stone, is it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. Went to the ground, went inside the ground. We was all segregated. Then it got, you know, one of those, again, a real typical atmosphere. They were jumping up and down. Flares were thrown on the pitch, and yeah, it was quite lively, but not a problem. I think the actual match, if that's important, we lost 1-0. A little penalty.
I've got a feeling that was, someone will correct me if this is wrong, but I think that was the last qualifying game that we'd lost before the Czech Republic game recently in Prague.
You could be right, because somebody gave me a similar fact where they said, no, we don't lose very often on away days. We lose a few friendlies, but we don't lose very often. And our record is absolutely ridiculously good.
Yeah.
Ridiculously good. So, yeah, that's probably true. But I know we had the goalie sent off, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Is that Rob Green?
It was Rob Green.
Yeah.
And I think that was the end of him for England after that. I think it was that Paul Robinson in Croatia moment. They never quite recover from it, do they?
Yeah.
So yeah, but best thing really to remember on that match, apart from the flares, was afterwards they kept us in for about 3/4 of an hour, and the Ukrainian cheerleaders came on and started practicing on the pitch.
Right.
And obviously they got some not some stick, but they got some encouragement from the England fans who were just standing there, and they put on a mini show for us just for the hell of it. And they I think if you look on YouTube, you might be able to find some of that, but it really was entertaining, very funny.
They probably haven't had a show like that before. The cheerleaders, a performance like that. Not
with that reaction, no. Which was entertaining. I'm pretty glad they probably couldn't speak English, because some of the suggestions were quite to the point. Yeah. But there we go. It was late in the day. I don't know what time the match went off, but it seemed to be really dark. But when we went out, you could tell there was still a little bit of something in the air. So we went straight into a pub, the little bar about 50 yards away. As we walked in, the governor came out and ushered us into this little side room. And there's about 6 of us sitting in there. He put a bottle of vodka in the middle of the table. There was a couple of other lads in there, and they were showing replays on this sort of 8-inch television box hanging on the wall. And he just shut a curtain behind us. He said, "You stay in here." So we just sat there for it. It didn't cost us a penny, just keeping us out of the way, so there was no worries or anything.
Oh, fair play.
That was entertaining. Then we went out of there, and as we were walking along, suddenly a bloke shouts out, "Oi, come in here." So went into this little bar, sit down, have a drink, have something to eat. There's this long table in this room. So yeah, I don't mind if we do. We sat down, me, the good lady, and this other guy. And then suddenly you're looking around, and these girls, it was a brothel. Okay, and I'm thinking, I've just taken my wife into a brothel. They've come round and she's put her arm round me. "Yes, you okay?" Speaking pidgin English. I'm going, "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks." And the vodka is free. I was going, "Yeah, this is great." I got a little tap on the shoulder. "Oi, we're out of it." I tell you other times, but that's not the first or the last time I've taken them in a brothel, to be fair. But that's
okay. Well, there's the saying,
yeah,
isn't there?
we
What
went
goes
out
on
there, and
England
then
tour stays on England tour.
well, absolutely, except that she was with me, so she knows what goes on tours. She's as big an England fan as I am. I mean, she's been to over 100 England games. Wow. Can't argue with that, fella.
No.
So yeah, back to the hotel. We had to be up about 3:30 because the flight was early morning.
Yeah.
So I said to her, just be at reception by, I don't know, about 4ish or whatever. So you get up blurry-eyed. Went down to reception. All the others, most of the people had been out for the night, decided just to drink through. Nearby, or I say next door, but nearby was a bowling alley, and apparently they had dancing girls on the top of the bar dancing over Sambuca lines. So unsurprisingly, they stayed there till about 4 a.m. And then there was a guy, when we got down, there was a guy asleep on the couch in reception. I thought nothing of, and his mate's trying to wake him up. And I got chatting to him. I said, well, what's the problem, pal? He says, Thompsons won't let him on the coach. So they've gone and left us behind. No, he said, yeah. I said, well, I'll tell you what, because we're independent. We'll have a word, but you've got to let him. If he can walk onto the coach, he can come with us. Really? Yeah, if he can walk, he can come on the coach with us. And I says, great. We started chatting. He found out that he was a Woolwich fan. Now, to be fair, I'm not saying that would have made a difference, but had I known that beforehand, I might have hesitated. But he was all right. And so he woke him up and started walking around, throwing some coffee down his neck. And by the time we left, he could walk onto the coach. So he got there slumped. We threw him out the other end. Thought nothing of it. And then a number of years later, I don't know if you remember, we played Sweden in Stockholm.
Was this the first game?
Blue Stadium. Yeah, that's the Ibrahimovic scores and beats England game.
Yeah.
Well, I was sitting there having a beer with some friends, get a little tap on the shoulder, and it was him, or his mate, not him, because he probably never knew who the hell I was. And he just said thanks and bought us a couple of rounds. So just shows you it's paid back nicely, eh?
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
It was really good. So that was about it, really. He caught his plane, we caught ours back to Blighty, and that was the end of a very entertaining trip. And I probably haven't told you all the stories there, to be fair, but they're the only ones I'm allowed to repeat.
Well, I mean, it sounds really, really entertaining, and the sort of thing that goes on an England away day. I mean, and I'm sure there's plenty of other stories from plenty of other away days that you've got.
Yeah, I'm one of these sad people. I tend to make some notes. Like I sent you some notes on it. I've made some notes, and I'm not one of the. I'm not going to release a book or anything, but I'm going to say just for myself, so I can pull up every now and then and say, well, look, this is what went on, and that's what went on. And now that you can keep photos on this Facebook thing, so I can marry those up as well. So it's very good.
Well, if you ever fancy coming on and telling us some more stories about Fans Go, the Fans Go days, then you're more than welcome.
I could do, fella. You're probably better off asking one or two other people who actually went on these things and see if they remember Fans Go. Because I remember getting into one guy who I go with all the time now, says he can't believe it. His friend rang up and tried to book with us. So I said, whatever the game was. I said, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, put you down. He said, do you want some money? I said, no, it's okay. Pay me in a few weeks' time. I just need to get my numbers. And he went straight on to it. He says, it's just, he don't want no money. And I said, well, no, of course I don't want money. I want money when I booked it all. Yeah. Well, I'm not certain this is a real thing. Are you sure you can do that? So, yeah, that's the sort of thing that we did. It was just very friendly, very friendly. Somebody else who went to Germany was in the wrong place at the wrong time in the World Cup. Remember, they deported a few hundred people.
Yep. For
that, was it the chair frying in I can't remember where it was, Stuttgart or somebody, can't quite remember. But he was banned from Germany for a little while. So I just booked him a hotel when he went over there. He went a ferry to Denmark, hired a car, drove to the game in Berlin. We had a room waiting for him.
Nice touch.
But he's just a nice guy, genuinely nice guy. Yeah, lots of stories for you, Russell. Maybe I'll tell you more over a few beers one day.
Would look forward to that, yeah. So, I mean, what do you think then for going forward on the pitch, England-wise, and next year as well? What are your thoughts?
It's difficult because, I was not brought up, but I remember 66. I remember the crap years in between. I remember the golden generation now was going to win everything and won nothing. The way that I'm pleased with Southgate. The way that we played, when we was in Russia was just refreshing. And I like the way he gets the players and himself to engage with the fans, which I think is important. So what do I think about it? I'm optimistic we'll have more good than bad times. We don't enjoy going to Iceland, playing Iceland in the Euros and getting beat, do we?
Not at all.
But we understand getting beat by some of the bets. If France beats us, we understand that. So. Yeah, I'm optimistic. The Euros, anyone can win. Will we win it? Who knows? Anyone can win that, though. Can he keep the squad together? Because they're all fairly young. We've got some great youngsters come through. If we can sort out defence, then I see no reason why we can't be a contender for the World Cup. There you go. But actually, I want to be shot down in flames now by everybody that knows me saying how rubbish we are and not a hope. I'm an optimist.
Yeah. We're going to be there or thereabouts, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, if we can reach a quarter final, who went to Moscow and thought we would win, we would stay there and be in the final? Most of us that went, fella, probably should have been as well.
Yeah.
But for that little git who used to play for Spurs called Modric.
Well, we'll leave it there, and let's hope we can talk in the future.
Yeah, well, we'll never know. If you go and give us a bell, we're bound to be in a bar somewhere. Yeah, just give us a bell. We'll meet up and have a quiet beer.
Will do. Steve, thank you very much for your time and your memories there.
More than welcome, fella. Keep up the good work.
Yeah. Love that. Thanks to Steve for his time there. Now, there's many things I love about doing this podcast, and one of them is talking and hearing about supporters' experiences. And as I mentioned at the beginning, perhaps you were one of the ones on one of Steve's Fans Go trips. If you were, do get in touch. Thank you again for listening. I'll be back soon with an episode on New Zealand. Yeah, I know. It'll make sense when it's out, promise. Don't forget, you can find the podcast on various social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just search Three Lions Podcast. Also, it's on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, all of those. And if you do get the chance to leave a review, please do. Give it what you feel it deserves. So until the next time, stay safe, take care, look after yourselves. Cheers.